Yeshua says, when you give birth to that which is within yourself, what you bring forth will save you. If you possess nothing within, that absence will destroy you. You see, there's a marvelous, subtle, clearer expression. So as we go through this, know that there are multiple ways to absorb it, and I ask you to put aside the rational mind for the intuitive, spiritual mind. There'll be history as well, so that you can put it in context and understand it. And you need not worry, this is nothing heretical. In fact, this saying right here is the favorite saying of Dr. Elaine Pagels, professor of religion at Princeton, Harvard PhD, and world-renowned author of groundbreaking books. And I say that for those of you who need the security blanket, that this is mainstream, this is not some bizarre, off-the-wall thing. Dr. Elaine Pagels' favorite quote in this book. Among all the astonishing documents accidentally or fatefully unearthed in 1945 near the desert village of Nag Hammadi in Upper Egypt, the Gospel of Thomas has made the greatest impact on our understanding of Christianity. The first English rendering of this text was published in 1959. What that means is it is still very much unknown and was greeted with intense interest by scholars and theologians alike. But the impact of this document was soon felt far beyond the circle of specialists, almost as though an audible recording of the voice of Jesus had been discovered. Even across the reaches of millennial time, and even through the veil of translations from languages known to but a few. For many of us, the words in this text have the power to touch an unknown part of ourselves that brings with it an undeniable recognition of truth and hope. When it was said of Jesus by those who were at first bewildered by him that he spoke as one having authority, what is surely meant is that he and his teaching authenticated itself by their power to awaken that same hidden, self-authenticating part of the human mind and heart. It is my belief, says Jean-Yves Leloup, one of the scholars of this text, also a French Orthodox priest and leading figure in Europe. It is my belief, he says, that it is from this ground of inner silence rather than from mental agitation that these words of Yeshua can bear their fruit of light. Is it possible, Leloup asks, to read these logia, these sayings of Yeshua, in a way that allows them to make their way into the mind and the heart of our humanity, leading us into a voyage of transformation toward a full realization of our being? Within this question lies both the effort and the reward, the demand and the gift offered by this and all truly sacred writings. The Gospel of Thomas was missing for almost 2 millennia until 3 copies of it were almost miraculously discovered several decades ago. 2 sections of it were written in Greek, found in Egypt, and a more complete edition in the Coptic language found near Nag Hammadi, buried under the sands of time in a clay storage jar. Practically predicting its own rediscovery, the book of Thomas says, "Know what is before your face, and what is hidden from you will be revealed to you. For there is nothing hidden which will not be revealed, nor anything buried which will not be raised." Saying 5. While we imagine ourselves to be the most technologically advanced and enlightened society that has ever existed, We remain blind to the chains that shackle modern people, which can be portrayed in the reality of a simple gospel proclamation in the words Jesus said, "But if you will not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty." This is a contemplative wisdom gospel with its format of proverbs and parables. It contains absolutely no narrative whatsoever. It's comprised only of 114 unvarnished sayings of Jesus, one after the other, and that's it. No commentary, no story, no more Roman centurions or scribes or Pharisees and locusts to block our view. Rather than being presented through the lens of others, the reader encounters a more direct, unfiltered, historic Jesus. The intention by those who compiled and circulated this collection is to encourage readers to deeply ponder each and every saying for themselves, leading them to their own personal insights and revelations, to internalize the words and be transformed by them. Though nowadays associated with Egypt, these surviving pages are copies of an even earlier Greek manuscript, most likely originating from Syria, which was and remains home base of the St. Thomas branch of Christianity, the Syriac Aramaic Church of the East. It is said that St. Thomas, during the 1st century AD, headed east, eventually ending up in India, where he spent the rest of his life. The living master said to his initiates, "What your own eyes cannot see, your human ears do not hear, your physical hands cannot touch, and what is inconceivable to the human mind, that I will give you." Saying 17. The master taught his disciples that in order to see the spiritual realm, they must fast from the world and enter into heavenly repose or Sabbath rest, rise above mental impressions, memories, worries, and agitations. They must set aside some time to rest spiritually, to temporarily close their physical eyes and ears to the outside world in order to, quote, see the Father, the Supreme Being, with the eye of the soul. Saying 27. The Egyptian mystic Evagrius wrote, "The offspring of pure prayer is swallowed up by the Spirit. From this point on, the mind is beyond prayer, and prayer has ceased from it now that it has found something even more excellent. No longer does the mind actually pray, but there is a gaze of wonder at the inaccessible things which do not belong to the world of mortal beings." We have come from the light, from Gospel of Thomas saying 51, "For you have come from it and you will return there again," saying 49. So a living teacher by the name of Yeshua once taught his living students that they would be able to experience, quote, entering the kingdom, the other dimension of inner space at the heart of the present, by seeing divine light. If your eye be single, your whole body will be full of light, a saying preserved in Matthew 6:22. For this reason I say, if one is whole, one will be filled with light, but if one is divided, one will be filled with darkness. Saying 61. Becoming a single one, a spiritually whole person, united with God, was the goal of the Thomas tradition of Syrian mysticism. When you make the two into one, then you will enter the kingdom. Saying 22. The spirit, mind, and body of the mystic all become united in God. Its new way of being is singleness. The word for single one or singleness is in the Syriac Aramaic language, ihidaya, and is used to describe souls that enter into mystical oneness. The hermits of the Syrian tradition eventually were called the Hidayah. However, Hidayah isn't merely a title, an office, or robe that one puts on, but is a matter of spiritual realization, an interior state of being, an individual experience, a mystical level of awareness that is reached by a contemplative soul. There is light within a person of light, and it illuminates the entire cosmos. But although the texts themselves can now be directly seen for the first time in nearly 2,000 years, to really see them is a task that invites us to something much more demanding and joyous than simply reading them according to familiar habits of intellectual analysis. It is not for nothing that in this document the very first words of Jesus, here called by the Aramaic name Yeshua, are these: whoever lives the interpretation of these words will no longer taste death. Is there some kind of knowing that can transform our being to the point, dare we imagine, of bringing forth a life that does not die when the body dies? The Gospel of Thomas contains no biography of Jesus, nor any account of his miracles. This collection of 114 sayings called Logia is all we find. These are said to be the naked words attributed to the Master, the living Jesus, written down by Didymus Judas Thomas the twin. What interests Thomas is the transmission of Yeshua's teaching. Every saying received from the Master is treated as a seed with the potential of growing a new kind of fully conscious human being. While we may look to see the depth of wisdom contained in a verse and gain an understanding of various levels of meaning intended, we can also see what the verse draws out from the depths of our own being, an expression of our holy soul or divine self. Jesus said, "He who drinks from my mouth will become like me. I myself will become he, and the things that are hidden will be revealed." Saying 108. To drink from the mouth of the Master and to become like him is to draw out the various teachings to be found in the different layers of meaning in the Scriptures. The Master becoming the person who is drawing forth the wisdom of one's own holy soul and Christ self. Only in this way are the things that are hidden revealed. This process of seeking knowledge, understanding, and wisdom must be more than merely the formation of mental concepts. So Logion 1, whoever lives the interpretation of these words will no longer taste death. The living Yeshua is speaking in secret, within, behind your heart. Christ dwells there within you. And when you go within, Christ will speak the secret teachings to you and lead you in the path of awakening. To listen and hear, you must be silent. You must empty yourself of yourself and let the Christ Spirit fill you. Dying to yourself, you must be conceived and reborn of the Spirit as the living Yeshua. Indeed, as Jean-Yves Leloup states so profoundly, you must experience the same conception, gestation, and birth as the living Yeshua, so that you might also be his twin, born of the same birth from the Holy Virgin Mother Wisdom. Everyone is the living Yeshua. The ordinary person is ignorant of this. But the apostle of God knows it and lives according to the truth and light revealed through experience. Likewise, the kingdom of heaven is here and now, within you and all around you. It is present within everyone. The ordinary person does not have eyes to see it, but the one who knows, perceives it, and so dwells in the kingdom of God here and now. Logos, word, and Sophia, wisdom, are to be found within everyone and everything, and so also within you. There within your secret center, at the core of your being, is the Holy One. The Christ self is your true self, the self of every self and soul of every soul. All are united with him in the sacred unity that is God. The Holy Spirit indwells the whole of creation. Knowing this, you will not experience death. Written or spoken, the secret remains a secret until it is part of your own experience. The teachings are received only when they are your own experience. Then they become a living initiation, a light transmission. Some would translate apocryphal words in the literal sense of the Greek apokryphos, which simply means hidden, but this prologue implies much more than that. Yeshua has come to reveal to us the words of the secret, of the human and of the divine, God in human, human in God, the secret of being and of love. The God of love who dwells in the depths of human beingness is a secret, and it is from these hidden depths that we can act, think, and speak in true freedom. Yeshua, the living, the awakened one, reveals through his words, his life, his acts, the secret that all human beings can realize and manifest. He fully incarnates life and love, which is why he is given the name the living one, the revealer of that which we can attain if we allow ourselves to be and live in the presence of God. What will death mean to that one who experiences what might be called messianic consciousness and dwells in the kingdom of God while in life? Indeed, death will not mean what it means to the ordinary person, for that one is not so self-identified with mortal name and form, but knows oneself as an immortal spirit, a bornless and therefore deathless spirit. Likewise, this person knows that the kingdom of heaven is present within and all around always, that upon death one's own experience of Christ will continue in a more subtle and sublime form, having shed the physical body. With this knowledge, death is no longer death, and the adversary has no power over the soul, whether in this world or in the world to come. Such a person is awakened and therefore free, having a continuity of awareness throughout all states of existence. Death will come, as it has for all prophets and saints, but it will just be an appearance of departure, a transition to another mode of existence, no more or less real than falling asleep, only to dream and awaken again. Death for the spiritual one is not an end as much as a new beginning. Ultimately, death has no substantial reality, but is merely a natural moment of transition. Knowing this changes everything. Yeshua said, whoever searches must continue to search until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. And being disturbed, they will marvel and will reign over all. This saying describes the major stages in this kind of knowledge, which constitute a true initiatory process. The first is the quest. We all know what the quest is. That's why many of you are here today. The second in this initiatory process is the discovery, discovering true and deep knowledge that is transformative. The third, according to this saying, this timeless teaching, is the shock and disturbance of this discovery. You will be troubled. You will question things. But the fourth, after the disturbance, is wonder and amazement. wonder and amazement out of the troubledness of discovering the new. And the fifth is the presence and reign over all, meaning a wholeness that can deal with all of life without being destroyed or wounded. In the 4th century, Gregory of Nyssa said, "Concepts create idols of God, of whom only wonder can tell us anything." The Greek philosophical tradition also saw wonder and astonishment as the beginning of wisdom. In our time, Einstein remarked that only idiots are incapable of wonder. And we might define idiots as those who forsake their quest, thinking that they know. The more we discover, the more we marvel and wonder. But these two are not some kind of romantic imagination or fantasy. For Einstein, wonder lay in the fact that at certain moments the world becomes intelligible, that there is a possibility of resonance between our intelligence and the cosmos, as if they were both animated by the same consciousness. Only after experiencing this wonder can we enter into the mystery of that which reigns over all. This seeking is the sacred quest for the Holy Grail, which is not a physical relic or a holy cup outside of oneself. Rather, the Holy Grail is a purified and consecrated heart, mind, and life. It is oneself open and sensitive to the Christ Spirit so that one lives the life of Christ. The Grail is the heart in which the Holy One dwells, the person who has discovered an innate spirit connection and who lives within. When seeking is based upon preconception, precondition, expectations, upon who and what you think you are and who and what you believe reality or God to be, then seeking itself becomes an obstruction, and what is sought cannot be discovered. If you go looking for something that does not exist, or go seeking in a way or in a place in which it cannot be found, then indeed you will not find it. At the outset, you must understand that the very nature of God is different than anything you might conceive, and that you yourself are not who or what you might think you are. God will forever be a mystery, the nameless and unknown. God is completely other than what we might think. Discovering this is a troubling thing, shaking one to the core. To draw near to the Holy One is a deeply troubling thing. For I must become no thing, empty of myself, that the Lord might enter and the Spirit fill me. God is no thing, and I must become no thing to enter into union with the Holy One of being. If you think you are something, if you think you are substantial and independent self-existence, a solid or fixed entity, it is greatly troubling to discover that your secret center is no thing, that you are empty of any substantial or independent self-existence. There is another sort of troubling that may come with the dawn of a higher awareness and drawing near to the Holy One. In the sacred unity that God is, you encounter absolute and ultimate perfection, the primordial emptiness that is at one and the same time divine fullness. Before the perfection of the Holy One, your own imperfection is glaring and stark in contrast, a profoundly troubling thing to discover, and indeed painful. Drawing near to the Holy One, you discover how very far away from God you are. This is the cause of the dark night of the soul, of which the mystics speak in their journey. Jesus said, if those who lead you say to you, see, the kingdom is in the sky, then the birds of the air will precede you. If they say to you, it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you and is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the sons and daughters of the living Father. But if you will not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty. The kingdom of heaven is within and all around. Yet if you do not know that the kingdom is within you, then you will not see the kingdom outside of you. Such is the nature of reality, this magical display of consciousness. The inside and the outside are not separate, but are intimately connected. The reality of your experience is the magical display of your own consciousness. A change in consciousness brings about a corresponding change in the reality you encounter. A change in the reality you encounter is an expression of a change in consciousness. Augustine, however, sensed the obstruction of such dualistic language when he said, there are many people who claim to be inside the church, but they are really outside of it, for they do not practice the love and life of Christ. There are many who are apparently outside of the church who are really inside it, for they do indeed practice the love and life of Christ. Whether heaven or hell, it is all a state of mind, a condition of consciousness. The kingdom of heaven is not a place, but a spaciousness in consciousness, just as hell is a severe confinement and limitation upon consciousness. So many souls are asleep and dreaming strange and fitful dreams. They are asleep and do not know that they are dreaming, and so cannot awaken in the dream to transform it. To the awakened ones, the holy ones, it is a sad and sorry sight. It is a vision of sorrow to behold the nightmares created by self-grasping desire and fear and all of the suffering that naturally follows. The awakened ones know the world of supernal light here and now, yet they also know how very real the suffering is of those who remain ignorant and asleep. What is to be attained? Knowing and experiencing yourself as part of the sacred unity that is God here and now. You have always been part of that sacred unity. You're always part of that Holy One of being. Never have you been separate from the Holy One. Union with God is not really an attainment. It is a present reality and truth. You need only remember the Spirit and truth. You need only awaken and live with this awareness. It is not something you lack, but who and what you most truly are. The son or daughter of the living God, the child of the light of awareness itself. So we see that to work for the coming of the kingdom implies a twofold movement toward the inwardness of all things, spiritualizing matter, and toward the outwardness of things, manifesting the Spirit, incarnating it fully within the space, time, society, situations that are ours. Logion 7, Yeshua said, "Fortunate is the lion eaten by a human, for lion becomes human. Unfortunate is the human eaten by a lion, for human becomes lion." Some would interpret this lion, which a human may eat, but which must not eat a human, as a symbol of the libido, the life force within us. Eating the libido means taming and mastering it so that it becomes humanized and ultimately transformed into a force of love. On the other hand, when we are, quote, eaten, that is, manipulated by it, we are conditioned by this libido and become its slave. In this kind of spiritual thought, the lion is more the ego or mental activity that stalks us, devouring our attention and our true identity, which is the self. Fortunate is the little me integrated into the self, for it has found its true place. Unfortunate is the person so devoured by ego that bundle of memories, as Krishnamurti called it, that he forgets the self. Then human becomes lion, egocentric. The ego persona co-opts and devours everything in sight. Jesus said, I have cast fire upon the world, and see, I am guarding it until it blazes. In the Gospel of Luke, Yeshua expresses his impatience to see the fire lit, but in the Gospel of Thomas, it would seem that he is preserving the fire. The Master comes with a holy fire, a fire-consuming fire, making all like unto itself divine. The Master imparts the fire, kindles the fire, tends the holy fire until it blazes and transforms the disciple. The disciple, too, once receiving the holy fire, must kindle and tend it until it blazes. The Master and disciple acting together so that initiation comes to fruition. There is a holy continuum of adepts or masters that empowers this continuity of spiritual practice and spiritual living among the disciples, and at the same time blesses and protects those they have received as disciples. Once such a connection is actually formed, it remains until it is brought to fruition or completion, the actual completion occurring when the disciple imparts the initiation to another person. Here the Master speaks of this secret continuum. In this way, passing from one to another, the whole world is set on fire with the word of the Holy One. The Master is also speaking of something more, for Yeshua, Messiah, is an incarnation of the great world teacher. More than a prophet, he is Messiah. He brings into the world a new divine consciousness force, along with a new dimension of teachings and initiations corresponding to this supernal light force. Embodying this divine consciousness force, he transmits it to his immediate disciples, and through his disciples to the larger collective of humanity and the world, initiating a light transmission that passes from one generation to another through the succession of apostles, the initiates who hold the secret keys of the mysteries that the Master taught and who embody something of the light force he brought into the world. 16, Jesus said, men think perhaps that it is peace which I have come to cast upon the world. They do not know that it is dissension which I have come to cast upon the earth, fire, sword, and war. For there will be 5 in a house, 3 will be against 2, 2 against 3, father against son, son against father, and they will stand solitary. The peace of Christ, the peace that Christ offers us, is neither euphoria nor some kind of tranquilizer. It is the essential peace of being, which does not depend upon favorable outer circumstances. In order to discover this peace, which nothing and no one can take away from us, it is necessary to be willing to undergo the fire, the sword, and war. In other words, to experience the purification, the discernment that shakes us out of our false sense of security. When Yeshua says that he comes to bring us fire, sword, and conflict, he is also offering us the tools for our own liberation. He is teaching us how to break free of the false identifications or self-images to which we are so attached, but that prevent us from attaining our true reality, free of illusions. Whoever has been through liberating trials is able to stand alone and simplified. Here we have 2 words for one word that is difficult to translate. Monachos, which is often poorly translated as monk. Monachos does not necessarily imply celibacy. It refers to those who move towards the one, monos, towards the integration of all their aspects, body, soul, spirit, so as to become monogenetic, like the sun, one entire river flowing toward the Father. This solitude is not a separation from others. On the contrary, it allows a deeper meeting with others, meeting them in their own essential solitude. Jesus said, I shall give you what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, what no hand has touched, and what has never occurred to the human mind. When Yeshua offers here, what Yeshua offers here is not something that can be thought or felt or seen or imagined. So he affirms the transcendence of uncreated being. To say, quote, I know God can be only presumption and falsehood. While making himself known, God still remains unknowable. Here the Gospel of Thomas shows itself as the source of traditions such as hesychasm, which simultaneously affirms the inaccessible character of God and the reality of participation in his being. From this, Gregory Palamas, the 14th century Greek Orthodox saint, made the distinction between energy and essence. We can never experience the core of the sun, yet we can warm ourselves in its rays. This is also the paradox of union with the divine. It is neither fusion nor separation. The disciples said to Jesus, tell us how our end will be. Jesus said, have you discovered then the beginning, that you look for the end? For where the beginning is, there will the end be. Blessed is he who will take his place in the beginning. He will know the end and not experience death. Every present moment in its greatest depths reveals the Alpha and the Omega. Instead of asking questions about the end, we would do better to attend to the ever-present source where all life, thought, movement, and being are born. Jesus said, blessed is he who came into being before he came into being. We can also relate this logion to the famous statement of Yeshua, for which it is said he was crucified. Before Abraham was, I am. This means that before entering into the space-time continuum, which includes the historical Abraham, before any existence, I am. And this evokes the divine name, the uncreated. Meister Eckhart paraphrases the words of Yeshua, before I was born, I am, for all eternity. Blessed are those who, while still in space-time, become conscious of their being in eternity, for they are in this world but not of it, and even stones will serve them. In Logion 21 we find, you then be on your guard against the world, arm yourselves with great strength, lest the robbers find a way to come to you, for the difficulty which you expect will surely materialize. Let there be among you a person of understanding. When the grain ripened, he came quickly with his sickle in his hand and reaped it. Whoever has ears to hear, let him hear. The spiritual initiate does not wait upon the second coming of Christ, continuing to live in ignorance. In faith, the initiate seeks knowledge of Christ within, labors actively to bring the Christ self forward, and lives according to that truth and light revealed. To spiritual initiates, the attainment, the image of the Holy One, is the path. Practicing and living the attainment, they bring forth the fruit of the attainment and so embody something of the Christ Spirit. Spiritual practice is remembering and awakening, and so setting yourself free. The disciple is one who is awakening, just as the Master is one who is awake. Resurrection is not an attainment in death, but rather an attainment in life. Therefore, even before the enactment of the mystery of crucifixion and resurrection, the Holy One could proclaim, I am the resurrection and the life. Who is the thief that would steal that divine life from you? It is ignorance and forgetfulness and the cosmic forces that support the darkness that has dominion over this world. While in this world you must be on your guard and not be distracted, lest you fall asleep, lose yourself in forgetfulness again, and so fail to awaken and set yourself free. When you make the two one, and when you make the inside like the outside, and the outside like the inside, and the above like the below, then you will enter the kingdom. The disciples conclude that to become like an infant is sufficient in order to enter the kingdom, but Yeshua reminds them that the infant is a symbol of non-duality, and that it is delusive to attempt literally to be like a child, harboring childish behavior or attitudes in ourselves. Rather, we should work to integrate all the dimensions of our being. Jesus said, I took my place in the midst of the world, appeared to them in the flesh, I found them all intoxicated. I found none of them thirsty, and my soul became afflicted for the sons of men, because they are blind in their hearts and do not have sight, for empty they came into the world. Empty too, they seek to leave the world. For the moment they are intoxicated, when they shake off their wine, they will repent. That word intoxication used by the Master is a perfect analogy. In fact, it is quite wonderful, for he tells you that this ignorance and forgetfulness and the suffering that follows is not a permanent state. Rather, any time you are ready and willing to stop consuming the intoxicant, you can sober up and regain your intelligence and lucidity. He goes further, saying that eventually every soul will shake off the intoxicant and repent. That is, every soul will experience a spiritual conversion or radical change in consciousness. Not only can you sober up, eventually you will, and when you do, you will experience a transformation of consciousness. In the midst of great horror and darkness, the Holy One offers hope. Before you can seek sobriety, you must recognize that you are drunk and the negative effect of that intoxication. You must see the sorrow and suffering drunkenness causes and how you become someone or something other than your true self. You must look and see clearly where selfishness, desire, and fear carry you, and realize the unhappiness and unhealthiness caused by it. Until a drunk is able to admit to being a drunk and able to see how it ruins one's life, he or she will not, actually cannot, attain sobriety. The same is true in terms of the intoxication of ignorance and darkness. Therefore, quite naturally, confession of ignorance and sin precedes that awakening. Jesus said, if the flesh came into being because of the Spirit, it is a wonder. But if spirit came into being because of the body, it is a wonder of wonders. Indeed, I'm amazed at how this great wealth has made its home in this poverty. To allow holy awe and wonder to emerge is to experience to some degree something of the presence of God in that very moment. The greater the intensity of awe and wonder, the more one enters and is entered by the living presence. Life and nature herself is a gate into the divine presence through which you may pass anytime you wish. All you must do is allow yourself to be amazed. To speak of faith in God is something more than merely believing in the existence of God. Rather, it is belief with understanding in the ever more you can be in the Spirit of God, the ever becoming of yourself and the whole of creation. It is faith and hope in the infinite and exhaustless divine potential. Jesus said, many times have you desired to hear these words, which I am saying to you, and you have no one else to hear them from. There will be days when you will look for me and will not find me. According to the Manichaean Psalms, the Savior transmits this logion so that the disciples would recognize later that it was the Christ who was calling them. Mary Magdalene would also evoke these words of Yeshua, quote, remember what I revealed of myself to you on the Mount of Olives. I have something to say and no one to say it to. The Logion continues with Yeshua speaking of the day when they will seek but not find him. But why seek the Christ, the living one, among the dead? The right moment is now. Every day is the day of salvation, every instant the time of encounter. Jesus said, the Pharisees and scribes have taken the keys of knowledge or gnosis and hidden them. They themselves have not entered, nor have they allowed to enter those who wish to. You, however, be as wise as serpents and as innocent as doves. The knowledge communicated by sacred texts is one of attention and simplicity, as indicated by the following words of this Logion. Be as alert as the serpent, as simple as the dove. A spiritual initiate is not a person with any special knowledge, but rather a simple human being with a clear and open heart, and no self-concern or self-importance, someone who is attentive to what is in front of him or her. The spiritual person taught by Yeshua is one that believes, that develops a meditative attitude towards what is, an attitude that is non-dualist, non-rationalizing, and free of projection and judgment. Gnosis, or knowledge, is simply seeing things as they are. There is a remarkable beauty in Yeshua's image of serpent and dove. The serpent crawls upon the earth while the dove flies in the sky. Thus we are told to ground ourselves on earth without losing touch with our thrust upward into the skies. To hold both these animal qualities is to realize the union of opposites of earth and heaven. Logion 42, Jesus said, become passers-by. One who knows him or herself a traveler, passing through the world and the experience of this life, cannot be bound by the dominion of cosmic forces that rule over this world when the time comes to pass out of the world. Knowing oneself as a traveler, a soul of light, coming from the source of light and life, one is free to ascend and pass beyond. Yet anyone attached to this world and the name and form assumed in this life is not free to pass beyond. To be a passerby is also to be moving towards the other shore, from the shadows to the light, from this world to the Holy One, as Yeshua taught, to move from what is always passing to what does not pass, to awaken to the life beyond birth and death, resurrected upon the other shore of ourselves. People said of Saint Bernard that he had a very alert look, the appearance of someone who is constantly traveling. Passers-by see all things for the first and last time. They never look back, and they savor each instant as the very place of passage of the eternal now. Jesus said, if they say to you, where did you come from? Say to them, we come from the light, the place where the light came into being on its own accord and established itself and became manifest to their image. The ancient triple question, where do I come from? Where am I going? Who am I? Finds an unequivocal response in this Logion. You come from the light. You are going towards the light. You are the light. This is the reality of the living Son in us, who abides in the very heart of changing appearances. The sign of our link with this luminous reality is movement and repose, a union of opposites, the resolution of the seeming contradiction between action and contemplation, calmness within action, and vitality within repose. Jesus said, blessed is the man who has suffered and found life. If you must endure sorrow and suffering, then let it not be without purpose and meaning. Seek to draw from it the blessings that may be found in it, so that when the period of sorrow or suffering has passed, you will have the good from it. When you meet the challenges of life in this way, you will naturally be blessed and your faith will grow stronger, and your soul more refined. You will find life. St. James has written, as you know, whenever you face trials of any kind, consider it joy, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its full effect, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking in nothing. Be joyful in the face of trials and tribulations and sorrow and suffering, for they will be transformed. When met in this way, every challenge of life is an opportunity for growth and development of the soul and spiritual evolution towards Christ consciousness. When you open your heart, making room for everyone and everything, and for the Holy One, suffering is decreased and passes more swiftly. This is simple wisdom of life experience. Jesus said, "Take heed of the living one while you are alive, lest you die and seek to see him and be unable to do so." Need more be said. Jesus said to her, "I am he who exists from the undivided. I come from the one who is openness." The poet Rilke once said that openness is the least blasphemous name for God. It is the name that is the least defining and qualifying. Openness is the infinite space within the very heart of space, containing all and contained by nothing. The whole process of human transformation is one of opening on all levels: the physical, release of stress; the psychic, unraveling the knots of memory; the spiritual, allowing love, light, and forgiveness to live and radiate within us. The goal of this transformation is to dwell in openness, where the body is open to the energies of the cosmos. The heart is open to a deep compassion. A portion of Logan 65, and then the owner sent his son and said, "Perhaps they will show respect to my son." Because the tenants knew that it was he who was the heir to the vineyard, they seized him and killed him. Let him who has ears hear. The standard interpretation of this well-known parable is that God has planted his vine in this world in the form of his servants, the sages and prophets, but people refuse to respect them or listen to their message. But in addition to his servants, he sends his Son, a Holy One who incarnates the presence, image, likeness of the Holy One in the heart of this space-time. The drama of the killing of the Son is the killing of the Christ in ourselves. It is the same madness, the same murder, stifling the likeness of God or love in ourselves. Jesus said, "Blessed are you when you are hated and persecuted. Wherever you have been persecuted, they will find no place." In every human being there is a place that hatred and persecution can never reach. The self, the uncreated being, beyond the identification of I as suffering victim. This is the space of inalienable freedom that empowers us to say with Christ, "My life cannot be taken, for I have already given it." Or the famous words, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." Blame and persecution may even be considered beatitudes, inasmuch as they awaken in us an authentic love for our enemies, putting us in touch with that freedom which no circumstance can ever affect. Jesus said, "Blessed are they who have been persecuted within themselves. It is they who have truly come to know the Father." He is speaking of an inward conscious struggle for growth and refinement of oneself on moral and spiritual levels, and evolution of the psychic and spiritual dimensions of oneself according to the truth and light revealed in one's own experience. Logion 77. Split a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there. When Yeshua says, I am the all, he refers to the fact that he manifests in himself the integration of all polarities and opposites. He incarnates the union of the human and the divine, the finite and the infinite, time and eternity. For a disciple of Jesus, work is not a danger, a burden, nor a hardship, but the very presence of the Holy One. You will find me when you break up stones, and I am there while you split wood. A metaphysical interpretation of this logion is that all things participate in the very essence of being according to their mode and degree. Jesus said, he who is near me is near the fire, and he who is far from me is far from the kingdom. To pass through the holy gate of the kingdom of heaven, you cannot be lukewarm, but must be hot, on fire with the indwelling Spirit, filled with divine passion. No one knows the presence of the Holy One, and the Holy One himself was not passionate for the holy Shekinah presence as he himself was passionate. Such holy passion burns oneself utterly away, and there is only the beloved. At the same time, holy passion itself is transforming and illuminating and is itself the divine life. For what passion comes is the passion of the inner self, or Christ's self, a new and divine consciousness and being filled with light and life. Jesus said, why do you wash the outside of the cup? Do you not realize that he who made the inside is the same one who made the outside? A radical change in consciousness is necessary to enter into Christ consciousness. In truth, Christ consciousness is something more than a change of mental concepts and emotions. It is a transcendence of the mental and vital being altogether. The transformation of mental, vital, even physical consciousness through the divine power that comes with self-realization in Christ. One must actually be reborn and transfigured by the supernal forces that come from above. This is yet another way in which Yeshua invites us to realize the non-duality of being and appearance, inner and outer. To abandon duplicity and hypocrisy is to rediscover transparency. It is also to discover that the same one is both outside and inside. The space inside the cup is the same space that contains the universe. One moment of true silence, and we are in the heart of that silence from which all creative words arise. Jesus said, seek and you will find, yet what you asked me about in former times, in which I did not tell you then, now I do desire to tell, but you do not inquire after it. Asking is receiving, seeking is finding, knocking is the opening of the door that you might enter. The mystical journey in spiritual life is by nature a sacred quest to which there is no final answer. Rather, it is a continuum of self-expression and experience through which the soul advances and evolves consciously. It is an ongoing, gradual, and organic process of exploration, penetration of the holy mysteries of God and creation, and thus the unfoldment of one's own self-realization. Jesus said, do not give what is holy to dogs, lest they throw them on the dung heap. Do not throw the pearls to swine. Here the Master makes it clear that the esoteric wisdom, the inner teachings, are not for everyone. While outer teachings may be more freely shared, the inner and secret level of the teachings must be shared only under the guidance of Holy Spirit with those who are ready to receive them and who will not profane them. We are charged to share and give what we have received. For only in this way is our reception fulfilled. But we must impart the transmission consciously, with discernment and with skillful methods, giving to each person what the Spirit would have us give in what is good for them. Receiving, we are called to share and give of ourselves in what we have received, that the light might be in extension and others might also receive and so be joined to the mystical body of Christ. We do not ourselves alone, but in order to be empowered and have something to share and give to others. Our aim as initiates in the Christ Spirit is to be channels of God's grace, vehicles of God's continual outpouring of blessings. To drink from the mouth of the Anointed One implies two things. First, a very deep intimacy, as though the intimacy of a lover to their beloved. And second, an active living and experiencing of the teachings given, hence living the word of the Holy One. These two things are in fact one and the same. For the lover of the Holy One will draw near unto him by living his teachings and practicing righteousness, thus becoming more and more like the Anointed One. The natural result and climax of such nearness or likeness is that the Anointed One manifests as you. To live the teachings of Christ is to become Christ-like, and yet more, to embody Christ, the Spirit of Christ, manifesting through your person. This is the aim of the mystic Christian initiate. The things that are hidden are revealed as one enters ever more deeply into the mystical experience of Christ. This is an obvious truth. Many things can only be revealed through direct spiritual experience, except within the context of the experience itself, such as with another person sharing the same experience. These things cannot be communicated. Thus, experience is the basis of initiation. Here the Master is speaking of the inmost secrets of initiations that transpire through direct experience of messianic consciousness, higher consciousness. This emphasis upon direct personal spiritual experience is the foundation of mystical Christianity. By mystical is meant knowledge acquired through personal and direct spiritual experience. Because of this emphasis, central to the teachings of mystical Christianity are methods of spiritual practice, mystical prayer, prophetic meditation, through which the aspirant may attain some degree of direct experience and so bring their faith to fruit in knowledge of the Christ Spirit. Logion 1:13, last one. His disciples said to him, "When will the kingdom come?" It will not come by waiting for it. It will not be a matter of saying, here it is or there it is. Rather, the kingdom of the Father is spread out upon the earth, and people do not see it. Human society or the world directly reflect the state of consciousness of the individual forming the collective. The world that we experience is the radiance of our own consciousness, or is created by our state of consciousness. In truth, the reality we experience and our state of consciousness are completely interconnected. Therefore, to change the reality of our experience, we need to bring about a corresponding change in our consciousness. Mystical attainment means a conscious unification with God, which brings a corresponding change in reality or manifestation. The way of enlightenment is opposite to the way of unenlightened society. You must separate yourself from herd consciousness and sojourn in the opposite direction of unenlightened society in order to realize Christ consciousness in yourself. Once having realized something of a higher consciousness, you must then labor to enlighten your society and to bring about a greater good. The true nature of the second coming is a dawn of Christ consciousness in a sufficient number of individuals to effect a radical transformation. To accomplish this sacred duty, we must engage with the teaching of that first logion of the Gospel of Thomas and ask ourselves if we are truly living the interpretation of these words. in our body, heart, and mind. Only then can the creative words of the living Yeshua give rise to the new person in us, in the image and likeness of the Eternal One. Thank you for your attention.